All right, so let's talk about Metasploit. And to do that, we're going to take over a machine running ActiveMQ. Now, ActiveMQ is some kind of Windows software, and I don't even know what it does. I just saw some news article saying ActiveMQ is vulnerable, and I said, fine, let's use it as something to hack into. It's a Java-based product that listens on a network port, and it's vulnerable. And the whole point of Metasploit is you don't even really need to know what's going on. It's nice, but Metasploit is so easy to use, you can kind of attack things without really understanding the details of the vulnerabilities. It's sort of too easy, which is why the OSCP will only let you use Metasploit once. So all you have to do is install Java, download ActiveMQ, and then just launch it with a command line command. So I have done that on my Windows machine here. Now, for this to work, you need to have a Windows machine and a Linux machine on the same network, which we talked about before. And I said I was going to do it with a hybrid network, and that's what I've done. So what I did was I connected them with a VPN, and you'll find that up here in the cyber range setup, WireGuard VPN. WireGuard is the new hotness in VPNs. It's considered the best by a lot of people. So I said, let's see how good it is. And it does seem pretty good. The cool thing about WireGuard is you really control your server. You have a public key and a private key on the server, and you have a public key and a private key on the client. And you have to exchange the public keys both ways. So it really seems well designed to make sure nobody is getting in there except you. So when you get it all set up correctly, then if you go to your Linux machine and do sudo, or you don't need sudo, IPA to see your IP addresses, this machine has a loopback address and a real internet address with a 10 address that's going to the internet, and then it has a WireGuard virtual address. And the WireGuard is 192.168.101. That's what the address I gave it. And my Windows machine, which is running on my local system in VMware, is connected. And here's what it looks like. Let me shove some of this stuff out of the way. There, it looks like this here. And it appears right down here on the taskbar, this thing here is WireGuard. And if you open it, it will just show you I can edit my tunnel. And you'll see it just has the public key of this server, the private key of my Windows machine, the public key of my Linux server, and the IP address. This is going to be 4, and the server is going to be 101, anything will be allowed. And then it has a log showing I'm all connected and stuff. It's sending keep alives every 20 seconds. So it's pretty nice. And so the end result is my Windows machine has a interface. There, if I do ipconfig, pipe more, I've got a Ethernet 0, and I've also got WireGuard someplace. There it is, right on top, 192.168.104. So my Windows machine is effectively directly connected to my cloud machine. That was the point of this exercise. So this is 104, this is 101, and I can ping that. Ping 192.168.101, and I'm sending a ping to the Linux server and back, and it's only one hop away. So now this is what I want. So I'm running a server here. All I did was launch this ActiveMQ thing, and it's running in Java and sitting here waiting for connections. And so I can detect it from up here. All I have to do is run nmap. This thing runs on port 8161. So if I run nmap scanning that port, it will tell me. It won't take very long to only scan one port, and the SV will give me the version number, so it will show me the header, and this thing will be detected as Jetty and the version number, port 8161. So I found a server, and now all I know to do is exploit it. So I'm going to go back to my instructions and get to my Metasploit instructions here. So I've started Apache MQ. I've installed Metasploit on my Debian server. And I always start with sudo msf console -q to avoid having a big banner. That takes a minute or two to start, so I'm going to start that. So I start Metasploit console, and now I can search for active MQ exploits. This is active MQ, so you can search for exploits with that name in them here. And there are 5 exploits found, numbered 0 through 4. And I had version 5.11, and I think it was Nmap that showed me that. Jetty 816. Well, it's not easy to tell. Somehow I knew I had 5.11. Let me see if I know. Jetty 816. Yeah, anyway, I did install 5.11. So anyway, since it's 5.11, this one here tells me I got directory traversal shell upload. That's exploit number 4. And it's, of course, the latest one from just last month, May of, a year ago, I guess, 5/19. So, and it's excellent. This tells you the quality of the exploit. Excellent means it almost always works. It doesn't crash the server. The other ones, fail sometimes, make trouble. So this looks pretty awesome, and it's going to upload a shell. So I'm going to use that exploit, which is Windows HTTP Apache ActiveMQ traversal upload. So I tell it which exploit to use. And I'm going to make this bigger. All right. So I use that exploit, and now I show the options to show me what's going on with this exploit. And so it tells me what parameters I need to set. There's a password, there's a path, and here's what's required. Our hosts, I'm going to have to put in the IP address of the target. The port is 8161, which is the default. / and admin are also defaults. It looks like the only thing I really need to put in is our hosts. And the other thing I'm going to need is lhost in the payload options. The default payload is a listening port on 4444. This is, by the way, a pretty miserable weak attack. It's going to try opening a listening port on the Windows machine on a funny port number, which I'm going to then connect to. So only an idiot would let their server fall for this, because you should be firewalling all the ports you're not using. Nobody should be allowed to listen on 4444 and get traffic in from the outside on your network. But this might work on machines without firewalls. You can change the payload to something else, but by default, it is. Oh, this is a reverse shell. Pardon me. Good. Okay. Then I never mind. It's not that dumb. It's listening on 4444 on my end. So that's better. It's going to connect to 4444. Now, Enterprise would probably not fall for this either, because 4444 is a common evil port and they won't let traffic go to it. It would be better to listen on like 443. But anyway, so I need to specify lhost has to be the IP address of my command and control server, which is my Linux machine. And our host needs to be the IP address of my Windows machine. So that's the game here. So my R host is 192.168.104 in this case. And my L host is 192.168.101 is my server. And then I can exploit. And off it goes. It starts a listener on 4444. It uploads a payload to the Windows server, and then it's going to phone back. And hopefully it will work. We will see. It's kind of slow, but Java is always kind of slow. And I can see here, no, it looks like, yep, it's working. It's just slow. Remember, you're exploiting a Java service, and Java is really slow.
Shell.
Yep, I got a command shell. That means I now have code injection on that server. So I can now execute things like I can do enter, and I now have a DOS command line. So I can do like dir, and
Can you upgrade it to like a interpreter shell?
I don't know of an easy way to do that from here necessarily, but in principle I could, if I can find a folder I can write to, and then I could use something like bitsadmin to upload the file.
Right.
So in principle, you can do it with shell commands now. So I'm able to, in fact, I appear to be the administrator. So it looks like
you're good.
I'm good. I should be able to do almost anything I want to now. So that's pretty awesome. And you can get a flag here. So that shows the simple function of Metasploit. And there's a lot more to Metasploit. I got just a few more in this class. And so one thing I thought was cool was adding a custom exploit, because this is very common to me. I scan a server and it doesn't have something in the default Metasploit that's vulnerable. You have to have something pretty old and popular that's not patched. So if you've been putting on your updates, you probably are not going to fall for default Metasploit install. So what I often find is you have to search elsewhere. So the thing I often have to do, which I've been pretty clumsy at, is adding stuff from ExploitDB. So wanted to get that here. So here,
Like raw shell code from ExploitDB.
yeah, that sort of thing. Here I'm going to put on a custom exploit. So I'm using Vuln Server. Now, Vuln Server you might have used. We use it in all exploit development classes. It's a Windows application that has a bunch of vulnerabilities. And you use it to practice developing exploits. And there is no Metasploit module to exploit it because it's not a real commercial product that anybody uses. So I thought it'd be a good thing to practice making a custom exploit. And so what you can do is search for a Metasploit exploit, and it won't find any. So you have to add a custom exploit. Now, to add a custom exploit, this is very annoying. I find a lot of contradictory tutorials because, you know, Kali and stuff keep changing things. So on a Debian server with Metasploit installed with the default Metasploit install script, here's one place you can put modules, root.msf for modules exploit Windows MISC. You just have to put the exploit in the right folder. But it is more annoying than you would think. Every time I've done it, I've been sort of pounding the desk.
I think on MS5, it's actually different than that.
This is MS5. This is the latest version, but you can put it in MSF4.
This is MS4, okay.
It is, but you can still find things in the MS4 folder. There are all these tutorials that put it all different places, like in options and stuff, and a lot of them don't work. Every time I do it, I feel stupid.
Okay. And
so that's why I wanted to write a project where I have the right instructions for this version anyway. So now you can put in this exploit code. And this is just exploit code I got on the internet. Somebody wrote a Metasploit module. And this will attack the Trun. If you take my exploit development class or anybody else's, you'll exploit Vuln Server. And Trun is the simplest exploit where you have a buffer overflow. So anyway, this is the module. So you can just type in that custom exploit in a custom location. And
is
now
that Trun for Trinicate?
What's that?
Is that Trun for Trinicate, or are you
Trun? Nobody knows. Vuln Server has about 8 methods, and they're just sort of random words. It's supposed to look sort of like an email server, where it has stuff like hello, but they're just meaningless words. And then they have parameters, and they each have different vulnerabilities. And this is the simplest one that has a basic buffer overflow exploit with a long string.
I see the knob. Okay.
Yeah, this is the simplest one. So what this guy did, so all you do is you put in 32 NOPs and then the payload, and there's an offset here. You put in a bunch of NOPs.
So it makes a NOP sled, and then
it makes a NOP sled, and then executes the payload.
Okay.
And it automatically puts in the right address and stuff. So that's all it's doing is making a simple exploit. And so once you've put the code in the right directory, then you run reload all. And now it will hunt for new modules and load them. And now when you search for Vuln Server, you'll find it. And now you can just use it like with pre-built modules. So now it's here. You can run info. All you have to do is show the payload, show the options for our host lhost exploit, and you get a shell. So
I didn't know about the reload all command. That's nice.
It took me a while to find it. And if you Google how to do any of this stuff in Metasploit, it's very frustrating because it has changed many times.
Oh,
and many of the tutorials are for old versions and stuff. So that was how to add a new module that is already written to Metasploit. And the other thing, which I thought is good, is just writing a custom Metasploit module. This is not that hard. So
you write Ruby, correct?
Yeah, but Ruby, you don't have to know much. You pretty much just have to fill in the blanks.
Okay.
So it's so here I found a proof of concept exploit. So I found this thing called VU Player. It's a thing with a vulnerability, but it's not in Metasploit, or at least I didn't think it was Metasploit. It might be duplicative. Anyway, I found ExploitDB's code, which is I think this is just Python code. Well,
that's shell code. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be. It is standard Python stuff. So this is shellcode that will install this thing and launch port 4444. So now you can try it and see that it works. So you've got an exploit, but it's not a Metasploit module, and you can make a Metasploit module. I just talk about how to go through this. There's a template showing the structure of a Metasploit module. It's in Ruby, but you specify the ranking here, how powerful it is. Then you put in vendor, software, root cause. This is from Rapid7, name, process, and all this jazz. And so you can build your module, make these modifications, and then because you have a ROP chain, you have to go find a ROP chain exploit to copy. So I just Googled on GitHub, or Google for ROP, somebody with a ROP chain, and I found one to copy. So here's one, easy RM to MP3. This shows you how to put a ROP chain in Metasploit, which is not in the default template. But there's just a little template here. You fill in the stuff, and someplace, this is the regular one, and I think there's another one that has the ROP chain.
I'm screenshotting the hell out of everything you have.
What's that?
I'm using GreenShot. I don't know if you know what GreenShot is.
Screenshot, yeah. Anyway.
Basically, screen.
Yeah, here it is. This is the one with the ROP chain that I wanted to point out.
Print screen everything you got.
Oh, okay. Well, it's all going to be in the video too. Anyway, so this is one with, there it is. This is the one with the ROP chain. So this is just some other exploit. So all you have to do is find examples. And then you just pretty much cut and paste stuff in. And it takes a little bit of work to get the bugs out, but it's not that hard. So you can be able to make a custom module and make your own exploit here. So it's good, clean fun. And I've always wanted to do that. And I've heard people say it's not that hard. And in fact, it's really not that hard. So there's that. And the last one is, of course, making malware, creating a Trojan. You do not need to find vulnerable software. You can just make a remote Trojan, and you just have to trick them into running it with social engineering or something. Of course, anything you make with Metasploit, antivirus will catch it because they're all onto this. So this is not that practical in the real world. But anyway, you can
obfuscation.
You can try to obfuscate it, but all the popular obfuscators, the antivirus catches them. You have to get the ones that are semi-secret, and then they get busted after a while. That's why what really works is to live off the land. Don't use
the ones that haven't been uploaded to virus total.
Yeah, but you do is you use native commands. That's the way you avoid antivirus like a boss. But anyway, this is a thing to know. You can, if you disable Windows Defender, you can then use malware you make with MSF Venom, which is Metasploit's Trojan maker. And you can just create a reverse TCP interpreter. And if you can get them to run that on the other end, then you get a shell. So it's a useful technique to know, but you wouldn't have to add evasion to it to get away with it. And the other thing it's good to know is migrating to a different process. If you get somebody to run malware, you got a shell, but when they close the malware, you lose your shell. So you want to migrate, and you can migrate to something that's going to stay up like Explorer.exe.
Yeah, Explorer.exe. Administrator process.
Yeah, Explorer.exe is the process that draws the desktop and the start button. So it stays until they log out. So that would be a place you could go. Anyway, and then you can do all the things like turn on the webcam and get a screenshot and all that good stuff. So anyway, those are the basic things you do with Metasploit that you ought to practice. And I think I'll stop this one and I'll come back and talk about the next sections in a few minutes here.
Man, I have learned so much from this. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad you're happy. There's a lot more here, but I see people are moving along in the scoreboard, so I think we'll get to more of it.
I haven't really been doing much of the scoreboard.